is Vicki Ellis, and I am the Executive Director of Heritage Ranch Christian Children's Home. Today, what I want to talk to you about is industry versus inferiority. This is one of Erikson's psychosocial stages of development, and it happens between the ages of 5 and 12 years. This is the fourth psychosocial stage, and it takes place during the early school years. So we're kind of talking post-preschool, pre-high school age here. So school and social interaction become really important and critical during this time in a child's life. So during this phase, a child's social world expands considerably because they're entering into their elementary and middle school years and really beginning to gain new friendships and venturing into new activities. So during this phase, through social interactions, children are beginning to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishments and in their abilities. It's during this stage that a child will really desire to begin gaining approval for completing tasks that are considered valuable to society. Through proficiency at play and at schoolwork, children begin to develop a sense of competence and pride in the things that they do. So when they are able to successfully complete these tasks, they feel competent and capable, and so they're able to form a really strong self-concept and a really strong sense of self. So in the earlier stages of development, children were able to largely engage in activities just for fun and to receive praise and attention. So when you're 3 to 5 years old and you're doing things, people really mostly are focused on how cute you are and that you're trying new things. But once you get to be in this stage between about 6 and 12, school has begun, and this is a time in your life when your performance is beginning to be evaluated. Grades and feedback from educators is beginning to take place, and so kids begin to pay more attention to the quality of their work and are beginning to learn what it means to have to perform and to be graded by those around them. During this stage, children become really capable of performing increasingly complex tasks. And so as a result of that, they are really focused on striving to master new skills. Now, children who are encouraged and commended by their parents and teachers will develop a feeling of confidence and a lot of belief in their abilities. Those kids who during this stage receive little or no encouragement from their parents or teachers will begin to doubt their ability to be successful. So children who struggle to develop a sense of competence can often emerge from this stage with feelings of failure or inferiority. People who don't feel confident in their ability to succeed may be less likely to try new things and more likely to assume that their efforts will not measure up under scrutiny. So during school and social activities, children often receive praise and attention for things like reading, writing, drawing, and solving problems. Kids who do well in school are much more likely to develop a sense of competence and confidence. They feel really good about themselves and they feel good about their ability to succeed. Children who struggle with schoolwork may often have a harder time developing this feeling of sureness and instead can often feel feelings of inadequacy and inferiority. So at this stage, it's really important for parents and teachers to offer support and encouragement no matter how well a kid is performing in these areas. Unconditional love and support from adults help all children through this stage, but it particularly helps those who struggle with feelings of inferiority or may not perform well, especially in the academic realm. So even if children struggle in some areas of school, encouraging them in the areas they excel in can really help foster feelings of competence and achievement. So I want you to imagine two kids in the same fourth grade class. One kid finds science lessons are really difficult, but she has parents that each night help her with her homework. And when she asks her teacher for help, her teacher encourages her. She receives praise for her efforts. So I want you to envision a different kid. This kid also struggles with science, but his parents are uninterested in assisting him with his nightly homework. And when this child goes to school, he feels bad about his poor grade and he doesn't know what to do about it. But when he goes to ask his teacher for help, his teacher is critical of his work and doesn't offer any extra assistance or advice. So eventually this child just gives up. And of course, as we could expect, his grades become even worse. So Both children at the same age in the same situation struggled with aspects of their schoolwork, but one child received the support and encouragement they needed from their parents and from their teachers, so they overcame their difficulties and built a sense of mastery and confidence. The other child, however, lacked the social and emotional encouragement he needed and did not succeed. So in one area, one child is likely to develop a sense of industry, where the other child is left with feelings of inferiority. So it is really critical that we attune to our children's needs and feelings during this period. Our role as a parent is to be a support system for our kids and a safe space to discuss their struggles. It's really important to encourage our kids to strive for excellence in every area, but we need to stay really mindful of the fact that each child will achieve differently than another. We never want our children to measure their worth or their value by their performance alone. It is extremely critical that we teach our kids that perseverance and grit are two of life's most valuable skills. I personally remember growing up that there were two people that I remember hearing stories about that really stood out to me when I thought about the importance of staying focused on a growth mindset instead of a perfection mindset. So I want to share just a little bit about that experience. So one of them is actually Tom Brady, who is known well for playing with the New England Patriots. I remember learning that when Tom Brady was in college, he was actually benched for like 2 years, and he wasn't, I say benched, he was not the starter, okay? It's funny to think about now because, of course, when I think of Tom Brady, I think of one of the most prolific quarterbacks of all time. So I think about a time when he wasn't the starting quarterback in college. You imagine that eventually he just wanted to quit. Then he gets drafted, like I think it's lowest overall going into the NFL, and then ends up sitting on the bench again for multiple years on his team because he wasn't the starter then. One thing that always stood out to me about that when I thought about Tom Brady was that there were just two options. Either to look at that situation and feel inferior and question himself, or to take those opportunities to become industrious and learn how to heighten his skills. And so what did he do? He didn't quit, he persevered, he had grit, and now he's one of the greatest of all time. Another person I remember hearing talk about in the last few years that I've talked to my kids about is the woman that created Spanx, really incredibly successful entrepreneur. And I remember hearing her speak once, and she shared that when she was growing up, every day when she went to the dinner table, her dad would ask her, "What is one thing you failed at today?" I remember hearing that and thinking, what an odd question for a parent to ask. But she shared about her experience was that every day her dad would say, "What is one thing you failed at?" What he was getting at is that if you haven't tried something new and you haven't failed, then maybe you're not doing life the way you need to. And so she lived in a home where she was encouraged to try new things in school, in play, and innovation. And now she's created this brand that was innovative, and she's an extremely successful woman. And what she learned was to be industrious, not to feel inferior when she failed. So I don't know about you, but I want my kids to understand the value of industry. I want them to value persistence, and I don't want them to live based on performance alone and thus have concerns in their life about being inferior because they aren't always doing things well. So I want to encourage you, if you are a parent, a caretaker, a teacher of a kid that is anywhere in this stage between the ages 6 and 12, really remember that it is critical that you encourage them to try again, to learn the value of persistence, and to realize that to teach a child to be industrious over time will create a resilient and persistent, successful adult. Do not fall into the trap of creating an environment where a child feels inferior because they struggle to tackle tasks that are difficult and thrive in that environment. Continue to support them, help them learn how to problem solve, and teach them as well, even if they're struggling with academics or anything else during this stage, teach them the value of overcoming and having grit, because that's what's going to serve them well later in life.